Hello everyone and welcome to the channel. My name is Excoundrel and I am an auto chess mobile YouTuber. However, with the release of TFT onto mobile and the fact that I love TFT, I really wanted to make a complete TFT beginner's guide for not only people who may be playing this from the auto chess community, but also people who are new to auto battlers as a whole. I really think that TFT mobile is going to be a huge success, and I really want to make sure that new players have the resources available to get the head start they need in playing the game. Auto battlers can be quite frustrating if you don't know what's going on, so this beginner guide is designed to teach you everything from the very core concepts to some slightly more advanced topics as well. Any infographic that you see in this video will be made available in the description below. There will be timestamps, and I will also link any websites that I have used to gather resources from, as well as any websites that I feel are useful. The description will have loads of information in, so make sure you go and check it out. Let's start with the absolute basics of TFT. You buy units from the shop. These are they're called chess pieces across the auto battlers in general. They range from 1 to 5 gold. They increase in rarity, obviously the cheapest being and the least rare being 1 gold, all the way up to 5 gold being the most rare. They fight for you and they make up your builds, and you can place them on the board, and your positioning does matter. These units combine together to give you classes or origins, and achieving these combos grant your units or your team as a whole powerful buffs. You can also level up your player or your little legend. These levels range from 1 to 9. Each level grants you an extra unit slot on the field, so you can at level 1 place 1 unit, all the way up to level 9 being able to place 9 units, and it costs 4 gold for 4 experience. You start off with, most of the time, 100 HP. If you lose a round, you lose HP, and once you get to 0, you are out. So make sure that you are trying to play to win most of the time. There are certain strategies that involve losing, but we can cover those in a later video. So let's have a look at some more in-depth concepts. This is the round structure. The unique mechanic to TFT that you will not find in any other auto battler is the Carousel. These rounds allow you to select an item with a champion attached. I like to say it that way around because most people aim for items over champions in the Carousel round. You can either aim for that specific item or you can aim for a specific champion. It really depends on what your composition needs. It is also ordered picking, with the lowest HP picking first and the highest HP picking last. The first round, however, is a free-for-all. Rounds are broken up into 1, 2, 3, 4 with little sub-rounds in those individual sort of sets. They are broken up into PvP, Carousel, and Neutral rounds, and beyond round 1, they all have the same makeup of 3 PvP, followed by a Carousel, 2 PvP, followed by a Neutral. Neutral rounds break up the action and allow you to find potential item components. They're pretty easy to beat, and usually you shouldn't lose to a Neutral round. Alright, let's have a look at some more advanced concepts, and again, if you need the information, I will link all of these infographics in the description below. Champions are separated by cost and rarity. The higher the cost, the higher the rarity. The higher the cost, the more impact those champions or the more carry potential those champions usually have. The higher level you are, the higher chance you have to find those higher rarity units. So 5 costs you can only find from level 7 onwards, for instance. There are a set number of champions of each rarity in any one game, and they're all formed from a collective pool that everybody, all 8 players, share from. If someone dies or sells those champions, they get returned to the pool. You buy champions from the shop, and you're offered 5 random champions every round. The store can be refreshed for 2 gold, but to build a good team, you need to make sure that you're watching what other people are buying, because if people are buying the same champion as you, they will be removed from that collective pool, and it'll be less likely that you find those specific champions. In terms of gold, this is the currency that you use for everything in TFT. You gain passive gold per round, starting at 2 gold at round 1-2, 2 gold at round 1-3, 3 gold at round 2-1, 4 gold at round 2-2, and then 5 gold for every round after that. You gain +1 gold for winning a round, and you gain extra gold for win and loss streaks. You gain +1 gold for a 2 win-loss streak, +2 gold for a 3 win-loss streak, or +3 gold for a 4+ win-loss streak. And you can also generate interest for every 10 gold you currently have, all the way up to a maximum of 50 gold. So you can generate a maximum of 5 gold interest on a round basis. Items are the core of TFT, more so than any other auto battler. Items are incredibly powerful and synergize with certain champions very well. You can get item components from the neutral rounds and the carousel, and later carousels and later neutral rounds may give you completed items as a whole. You can combine any 2 component together to get a completed item. It is a very simple system, but there are lots of items to consider. Items must be combined on a champion you own, and once you combine or even add a component to a champion, you cannot remove it without selling that champion. So a little tip is, if you want to combine an item but don't want to commit it to a specific champion that you own, then combine it on a champion that you buy from the shop, sell it, and get it back. It's a really good way to make sure that you're either protecting a certain type of component on your unit, or protecting or just not committing an item that you don't really want to commit. In terms of champions start at 1 star and they max out at 3 stars. 3 1-star champions will give you a 2-star champion. 3 2-star champions will give you a 3-star champion. So to achieve a 3-star champion, you will need in total 9 1-star champions. However, there is an item in the game called Neeko's Help, and this will allow you to copy any champion that you currently own. Depending on the amount of Neeko's Helps you can reduce the amount of champions that you need to find a 3-star. It is a really useful little item, and I recommend using it on big impact champions, the ones that are going to be the main carries in your composition. And just as a final note, this is some advanced concepts. We're not going to go too deep into this. We're not going to go into the formulas because I don't think they really matter to you. There are 2 types of main damage in TFT. Physical damage, which is mitigated by armor, and basic attacks, as well as some abilities, deal physical damage. These attacks can critically strike for 150% of normal damage, and every unit has a base 25% chance of a critical strike. Magic damage is generally dealt by abilities and is mitigated by magic resist. Ability power will increase the damage of these abilities. Ability power will also increase true damage, which is damage that pierces all resistances, shielding, and healing. And as a final note, mana is the resource that most champions use to cast abilities. Champions generate mana on hit. The higher level the champion, the more mana generated on hit. So you'll generally tend to see abilities cast more quickly by 2 and 3-star champions than they would be by a 1-star champion, for instance. Now, this particular infographic, I can't go into too much detail because this is a beginner guide and I cannot go through every single origin and class that is existing right here. But what I will link it to you, what I will do is I'll link it to you in the description below, as well as plenty of other websites that go into in-depth discussions around the classes and origins. But if you can see it and read it on the PC, I don't think you'll be able to read this on phone. I would recommend going to check out the link below, because obviously it tells you everything that you need to know about these particular classes and origins. However, you can also just read this in game and you'll get a feel for it the more games that you play. There are plenty of other cheat sheets out there on the internet, but this is just showing you that everybody is separated into origins and classes, and they all get specific bonuses from achieving certain thresholds in those origins and classes. Again, I will link this specific cheat sheet in the description below, but again, we'll have plenty of other things there as well. The unique thing about set 3 is the Galaxies mechanic, which has not yet been implemented. This is a screenshot from a Reddit post by Riot Mort, who is one of the lead designers on TFT, and this is the predicted releases for Galaxies. The Galaxies are specific board states that will essentially impact the way the game is played, and these are the board states that we have. Neekoverse, every player starts with 2 Neeko's Help. Remember, Neeko can copy any champion that you currently have, and it will allow you to combine into a greater power champion, like a 2-star or a 3-star. Lilac Nebula, the initial carousel, is all 4-cost champions, so you can either choose a champion that you want for a composition, or you can choose specifically to have the item that you want, for instance. It just adds a little bit more of a decision-making process to the carousel. Trade sector, each first reroll on a round is free, which is going to be insane. I think I'm really looking forward to that one. Super dense galaxy, every player receives a force of nature on reaching level 5, and force of nature is an item that grants you 1 extra unit slot, so it is very highly sought after. And not so little legends. Little legends can have more starting health and are larger. So you know when I said it's usually 100 HP? Well, in this particular galaxy, I'm assuming we'll have more than 100 HP, and it'll be a lot harder to kill players, and you'll have a bit more breathing room when trying to build certain compositions. So those are essentially the board modifiers that you could have going into any particular game of TFT. So I talked about positioning matters. This is not exactly a true-to-life grid, but it's essentially giving you a kind of an overview. I made this in Photoshop, so apologies for my Photoshop skills. Generally, you want to have your tanks on the front line. Now, a tank is a unit that is designed to take damage. This will become apparent to you the more that you play, but certain units are damage dealers and certain units are tanks. Some units are utility, some units are kind of in between. But the front line is meant for your guys that you want to absorb the damage. These will be people like Shen, these will be people like Malphite, maybe like Darius, for instance. Those will be your kind of frontline tanks. The middle and towards the back is what's known as the safe area. You often put sort of your high value carries in the middle and the back because generally infiltrators or assassin type units jump towards the back corners. So you can keep a lot of what you put in the middle fairly safe. Although, again, positioning is incredibly flexible and it basically depends on what kind of compositions that you're running as well as what kind of compositions that you're going up against. So I can't give you a one rule for all positioning guide. This is just basically a very simple positioning overview of the hexes on TFT. In the corners, you generally tend to have your ranged units. You can also place your assassins there because they will leap from the backline to the enemy backline. Assassins in this game, I think, are known as, or is this set, are known as infiltrators. And then there is some sort of space on the side, which is kind of the flexible space. It allows you to do corner positioning. You can put some more mid-range, bruisery type champions in the flexible space. You could put supporty type champions. The flexible space is just kind of there for whatever your composition needs in terms of positioning. This is a basic overview though, guys. This is not a one rule for all positioning. This is just kind of for very new players. This will allow you to get some grips about where you should put your certain units, and you'll come to understand that anybody that is ranged is usually not a tank. So if you've got someone firing a gun or firing a bow and arrow, usually they are your damage dealers and you want to put them in the safe spots. Tanks are usually your guys that are melee or sort of big beefy boys. So that's kind of what you're looking for in terms of positioning. Just in terms of some final gameplay and some tips, these are going to be some very quick fire tips. On the carousel, in general, you are looking to pick up item components. So like I said, you are wanting to find the item components that you need to combine the item that you want. Guides on the internet, which I'll link in the description below, will tell you what items work for specific champions. However, the more that you experiment, the more that you find out for yourself as well. So you'll always be looking for mostly item components, especially if you're not playing on the Lilac Nebula. Remember, on the Lilac Nebula, the first carousel will have 4-cost champions, so it does add a bit of a decision-making process to this. But yes, you are mostly looking for item components on the carousel. Tips for the early game. When you're playing the early game, I would thoroughly recommend that you just look for as many pairs and eventually into 2 stars as physically possible. You really want to have 2 stars just to sort of boost your game in general. Those 2 stars do not need to feature in your later composition. For instance, in this particular instance here, I found a 2-star Malphite and I found a 2-star Ziggs, neither of which featured in my late game composition, but they were there because they just give me a little bit more to work with in the early game, which is important because I want to protect my HP as much as possible. So just be aware that it is okay to put random 2 stars in your composition early on because you can always sell them later and they don't need to feature in your overall composition. When it comes to mid-game, you should start to have, a mid-game is usually by like round 3, round 4. Round 4 is probably a bit late, but you should have some idea about where you want your composition to go. Remember, as a new player, it is always better to stick to things like specific origins and classes that you like playing with. The more confident you get, the more you'll start to realize which ones are better, and you'll be able to read online the kind of the meta that you want to stick to as well. I found the Chrono Sniper composition online, and that is the one that I ended up running with. And you can see here right in the late game, I ended up getting a 4-star Jhin, which is just, you know, a 3-star Jhin. He's a 4-cost and he's very, very powerful. So in the early game, you are primarily looking to have as many 2 stars as possible just to sort of buff out your board. You're then looking to find a composition in the mid game. You can use guides to find those types of compositions and sort of find the champions that fit those. On the carousel, you're looking for specific items rather than specific champions. This is generally the way that it is done. When it comes to leveling and rolling, and this is something that I think is really important in TFT. When it comes to leveling and rolling, there is generally a set pattern to leveling in TFT, although that obviously will change as the meta goes on. That is something that I can't really talk about in a beginner's guide because it's something that kind of is flexible and very fluid in TFT. But remember, you do want to try and balance your economy and also your leveling up. You want to make sure that you're keeping up with the rest of the people in the lobby in terms of levels. You also want to make sure that eventually you're building a solid economy to make those rolls with. We're going to more advanced guides. For the most part, what I can suggest to you right now is go and enjoy the game and try it out and see what you can do with it. This is a very basic beginner guide, and I hope you guys enjoyed it. I'll be doing more TFT content on the channel, so if you drop a like and a subscribe, that would mean a lot to me, and I'll see you soon.